For You Be The Critic Presentation, I chose The Vampire Diaries. I chose this show because my favorite movie growing up was like Percy Jackson, Harry Potter, and just so when you get into the lore of like Greek mythology, vampirism, werewolves, witches, just that stuff in that kind of nature, I heavily pay attention and will watch the whole entire show in a day. I'm obsessed with stuff like that and I love it. And that's what really initially drew me into it, but really what kept me there was the storytelling, the music, and the characters. These are some of my favorite characters I've ever seen and watched. So they really kept me tied into the show. But however, my favorite character was Caroline Forbes. I relate really a lot to her because at the beginning of the show, she really started out as this great all-American high schooler that just wanted to be successful, go to college, do the American things once you leave high school or when you're in high school. And that all changed when she turned into a vampire, and it really made her dive deep emotionally more because she wasn't that deep before, and it really touched her and allowed her to connect more with her friends and stuff. And so I feel like once I like really more got in depth with who I am and really got comfortable in my own skin and stuff, just how she did, it really helped my confidence and gain people's like attention and trust, I guess. So I love Caroline. I have a special place in my heart for her because she reminds me a lot of myself. But the thing that I do not like about this show is the lack of diversity. I think within the first 5 seasons, I can literally only think of 3 people of color. That'd be Bonnie, Bonnie's mom. Oh, actually 4. Bonnie, Bonnie's mom, Bonnie's mom's like friend, and then Cade, the devil. But as you can see, all the people of color were casted as either witches or the devil. I don't think that was an accident. I think that was very purposeful, especially for the time that the show started. That it's very sad to see, but it's probably the truth. But we've gotten a lot better from then, and then also Bonnie got a lot more emotional depth to her as the season goes on. But I know that the actress, Catherine, I cannot think of her last name right now. Catherine, she had a lot of problems on the set because of the lack of diversity. So that's my biggest problem with the show in the seasons. A similar program that also kind of had the same problem, but that's not what we're talking about right now, would be Teen Wolf. Teen Wolf was a very similar show with high schoolers dealing with werewolves, vampires, in a mythical universe, but in our world. And the thing that I liked more about the Vampire Diaries, though, was it was more modern, special effects were more modern, and the lore of the myths went into greater detail than Teen Wolf did. I feel like they really didn't even talk about it that much. It was just really what they were doing each episode. But really in the Vampire Diaries, it gives you great detail about every single myth or lore they're talking about because they have to like go through that myth. So they are so much better about explaining the whole vampirism, stuff like that in the Vampire Diaries. Special effects too. That is a big one, especially for Vampire Diaries. The very first season, and I want to say like probably a couple episodes of the second season, were so dark. As in like once you watched it, it almost felt like nighttime because of how dark they made the episodes and how eerie they made the episodes when Damon or Stefan walked into the room. But if it was on Elena, Bonnie, or Caroline, it would be light, sun rays, sunshine, birds chirping. So I definitely think they played into what the characters were going to be and what they were going to act like with the music and like the theming, the dark light theming of like each episode. And then back to representation for the show. obviously it wasn't good. There were a handful of people of color, and I don't think I said this earlier, but I can also only think of one Latino person of the whole entire cast, and that'd be Enzo, and he didn't even show up until season 4 or season 5. So it took them a good couple of years to even get a Latino person on the cast. So that obviously was not a good thing for the Vampire Diaries, and I'm glad they fixed that in the later seasons, but it should have been fixed in season 2, when Catherine / Bonnie was bringing up problems about it. And production techniques, and we kind of talked about this already, but the music probably, actually no, I would say the dark weird theming of the episodes was probably the biggest thing of production techniques, because you visibly saw these techniques happening, and it made you feel a certain way. So I definitely think that the lighting of the episodes really made a difference about how you were feeling and how you were watching those episodes. The music, however, really just kind of went with the situation and what was happening in that certain situation, but it definitely made you know what was happening and what was going to happen later on after that certain scene. And so music and lighting, I think, were their biggest production techniques they used for this. And like I said, it is heavily there because you can feel it on episode 1. And one thing I think they did super well as well was their storytelling. The myths the depth they went into was great. If you love stuff like that, this is perfect for you. They explain every single thing. You can go research it and do all the kind of stuff that you want to do with stuff like that. So I absolutely loved of how great into detail they went into all of that. And like the original Vampire Family, how they have a spin-off show from that. They have just so much knowledge and so much information for this certain season, and for this, no, not just season, just for this whole show, that it really creates its own universe with families, lores, friendships, just everything. So I really do think this show has created a universe for itself, to where if you watched it, you would not just find yourself fully engaged to it and like have a lot to watch, but you would have a lot to think about, a lot to be happy about, a lot to be sad about, but also a lot to love while you're watching. So this is a highly, highly, highly recommended show, and I would please request for you to watch it. Thank you.